This is you, and this is your mother. And you with your mom are going to the shop. Then you ask your mom,
I want to see what toys are on sale. Can I go?
Of course, my son. Go and check your favorite toys. So you go to the toys section of the store, and there you find your favorite toy. Wow. Not that, you stupid bitch. I'm talking about Chucky. So you take your pants down and you start beating your big black Mexican sausage. And then Chucky says to you, I'm in Dead by Daylight. And then you beat your sausages together. Okay, maybe this story is not real, but you know what's real? Chucky is really in Dead by Daylight. And honestly, no one saw this coming. And Chucky is very unique killer. Not only is this killer the smallest killer in Dead by Daylight, but also this killer has a very simple and straightforward power. He's very easy to get into, and this killer also has a very high skill ceiling, which means that it will take a long time for some of you to master Chucky. The voice lines this killer has are amazing. The sex appeal this killer has is completely zero because this is a doll, so this killer is not sexy at all. But Chucky is fun, and I really like this PTB, not as much as I liked the Xenomorphs PTB, but this killer is relatively fun and he's a good addition to the game. But I got one big flaw with Chucky, and I guess you already know what I'm gonna talk about, so let's talk about it. But before that, smack that subscribe button or I will smack your mom's butt. Also, make sure to join my Discord server, because over there we talk a lot about vaginal penetration and sometimes we all masturbate together. So if you are interested, the link is in the description. So at first everybody believed that the chapter 30 killer would be Predator, and I was almost 100% certain that the killer for chapter 30 would be Candyman. Some people believed that the chapter 30 killer would be Springtrap, but nobody saw Chucky coming into the game. The reason why nobody saw this killer coming into the game is because of how little this killer really is, and we thought it would be impossible to get this killer into the game. Even developers themselves in the past didn't think that in the future they will add Chucky into the game because of how short this killer is. And if you tell me that Victor of the Twins is short, then this killer is even shorter than Victor. And there was always a question, if Chucky ever comes into Dead by Daylight, how will he be able to hook survivors, because he's so little? And developers found a perfect solution to that. There's a spirit of a real human being inside of the doll, so whenever Chucky needs to perform some sort of an action that he is too weak and little to perform, then the spirit of a Chucky comes out and helps him. And that is perfectly fine. But what is not fine in my opinion is that Chucky is the first killer ever to be played in the third person perspective, and you can see it on my gameplay footage. Yeah, there's no first person perspective for Chucky, you are locked in a third person view, and I think that this is a missed opportunity. As I mentioned before, Chucky is a very little doll, and imagine playing as this doll in a first person perspective. It would be immersive as fuck, and honestly it would require a lot of concentration. Not to mention it would favor survivors quite a bit, because if you played on some of those maps with a lot of grass, especially what is that fucking map called? Wait. What is that map called? Fuck. Cold Wind Farm. You would have a difficult task of spotting survivors. But I think that overall it would add to immersion, and when you play killer, you want to feel that immersion. Now, when you play in the third person perspective, of course you got an advantage. You can see more, especially when you use Shadowborn. Yes, it works on Chucky, but you don't feel as immersed in the game. You don't feel feel like, oh my god, I'm this killer. It's more like, okay, I'm controlling this doll. And because the third person perspective for the killer hasn't been tested ever before, this perspective is actually pretty clunky and wacky. It feels a little bit unpolished in a way. I mean, if developers want to give us the killer to be played in a third-person perspective, why don't they make it so we can see the entire body of Chucky? For example, I would feel better if I could see his legs, but instead I see half of the Chucky. And the worst is that in some instances I got stunned when I played as the Chucky, and it looked like I'm not even touching the fucking palette, and yet I still for some reason got stunned. And I was like, what? I mean, if I was playing in a first-person perspective, it would look like I touched the palette and then I got stunned because I deserved it. But in a third-person perspective, it's a little bit confusing. Sometimes you feel like it's unfair. You were further away from the palette, yet somehow you still got stunned. And the most annoying thing about this perspective is Chucky's power. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the power of Chucky. I think it's very simple to understand and very easy to begin using his power, but this power has a very high skill ceiling and I love it. But when you play in a third-person perspective, his power feels very clunky. His power, which is basically to dash into survivors and hit them, is very similar to Hillbilly or the Oni dash. But even if you are good at the Oni and Hillbilly, you will most likely suck at Chucky because of the third-person perspective, which will make you miss most of the hits, and it will truly require a long time to master this killer. And similarly to Nurse, if you get good at this killer, it will not make you better at any other killers, because this killer has a different perspective, and yeah, this is the only killer you will be good at. I appreciate developers trying something new, and if you are watching this video and you're thinking, what the fuck is this guy talking about, I'm gonna leave a comment that third-person perspective is cool. Yeah, I agree that third-person perspective is cool, it should be optional, and personally I think that developers are testing third-person perspective with this chapter, and hopefully in the future developers will make it optional to choose between third-person and first-person perspective for any killer in the game. I think that would be cool and awesome. That's how they should do it, but it's a missed opportunity for them not to add a first-person perspective to this killer, because wouldn't you like to experience being the shortest killer in the game, immersed into the game, seeing yourself as this killer carrying a knife and running through the map, you know, in the first-person perspective? I mean, I would, and I would choose that all day long over the third-person perspective. My friends, they are very skeptical about third-person perspective as well. I think it's just clunky, and yeah, mouse sensitivity, by the way, on a third-person perspective feels different than a first-person perspective, and I don't want to change it because it feels good when I play other killers, but when I play Chucky, it feels bad. Anyway, make sure to subscribe for more DBD videos, and I'll see you later. Bye.